Hi, welcome to How Literature Can Save the World, where we explore the written word's impact on our culture and our relationships with ourselves, each other, and the environment. I'm your host, Michelle R. Brady. Grab a drink or a blanket or an animal to pet, and let's begin to make our lives more meaningful, one book at a time.
The trouble that mankind makes is that he thinks he's Italian, he's German, he's Spanish. We're all humans on this beautiful paradise is our earth.
Today we have ELIZABETH Lukác CHESLA. She is an author, editor, teacher, and emerging literary translator. She serves as the fiction editor for Consequence Forum and is an associate professor at Gwynedd Mercy. Is that right? Gwynedd?
Gwynedd.
Okay. Yes. Mercy University. And her debut work of fiction, You Cannot Forbid the Flower, which we're going to talk about, was published in 2023. Her short prose and translations have appeared or are forthcoming in Quarter After Eight, Hungarian Literature Online, Another Chicago Magazine, and Flair, an anthology of chronic illness told in flash narratives, which sounds so cool. And I want you to tell us how we get that, or if it's not out yet or whatever. But welcome, and thank you so much for doing this with me. Now tell me about that flash.
Thank you so much for having me. Oh, you mean Flair?
Yeah, Flair, the flash, and the narrative.
Yeah. I came across a call for these flash narratives. It was actually quite a while ago. Unfortunately, the original publisher was supposed to be Bath Fiction, and they had for I don't know the circumstances, but they ended up dropping it, and so the editor was looking for another outlet for it, which is now in progress. So it should be out sometime early 2026.
Oh, that's so awesome. I think it sounds really cool. I have been kind of obsessed with Flash, and I feel like a lot of people are really finding how interesting and how complete such short pieces can be. It's kind of blown my mind, and I am surprised that I never. Is it like a new thing that we just never knew about, or?
So that's actually a really good question because it seems to be new, but people have been writing flash for a long time. Like Kafka has all these brilliant short pieces. It's out there. It's just not what's been taught canonically or what's typically taught. Yeah, I think that's changing. And I love it too. I'm glad that you do. And I think that there's a real audience for reading it and increasingly for writing it. So I'm excited to see it be getting so much attention these days.
But what about like the difference between? I know you're going to think that I'm an idiot when I say this, but prose poetry and flash, because I feel like they've got a lot in common. But I know you're also a poet, so I feel like you might be able to, and a teacher. I mean, what do you think? Like, am I crazy?
Not at all. We just actually talked about that in class today because we were looking at a prose poem, and it was specifically about immigration and borders, and this whole idea of using a prose poem to talk about borders is perfect, right?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Because it's both and neither at the same time, and that line is kind of arbitrary.
Yeah, that's for sure. So yeah, actually, both and neither at the same time is the perfect transition to You Cannot Forbid the Flower, because first off, it's incredible. I think it's an incredible book. I love it so much. I can't believe that I probably never would have found it if I hadn't met you. And secondly, like the form is so unique. I want to like kind of talk about the substance too, but obviously. But what I think is really interesting is that you have like a combination of every type of writing there can be in one book, and it all goes together. And I guess I'm asking, what authors do you think influenced your work here structurally? And did you intend it to be in conversation with any other books or work, or is this all like you?
I don't think any writer can say it's all just you ever.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah. There are some authors specifically who deeply influence the structure, and there are some references. I hope that some readers recognize the title of the epilogue is referring to that Raymond Carver story when we talk about love, which that is the longest section, like the most complete whole narrative in the book. Everything else, is so much more fragmented. Um, I would have to say, and I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to talk about this book, because a lot of people, I think, will, in terms of stories and that have really had an impact on them. I think Tim O'Brien comes up for a lot of people and the things they carried. But I actually have another book of his that's my favorite, and I think that was an inspiration for this book, which was In the Lake of the Woods.
I have never read that.
I think a lot of people who really loved Tim O'Brien maybe haven't. Uh, and in this book in particular, really pulls together so many different historical sources and um, relies on telling stories within the footnotes and fragmented pieces of evidence that add up to the story. And you have mystery and it's a love story, all these things. It's so fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I love that they're all these disparate pieces that come together to make a whole. And I'm just it's just kind of it's it's just one of a kind, honestly, to me. And even if, you had other books in conversation or authors that you've drawn from, as we all do, it's it's I've never read anything like it. So, and I just want to I'm not gonna, like, be insane about this, but, if it's okay, can I just read a little bit, and I won't mess it up too much, just to show, like, the breadth of the scope, because I this book is an example of what I've been trying to articulate, I guess to myself, about what a book should be or do, and I feel like publishing is really keen on pigeonholing work into one category or one theme or one topic, but, like, real life spans all these things, and real problems can't be contained, like, so arbitrarily. And I guess I'd argue that the way different problems interact with each other is really what, it's all about, and the books need complexity. So, anyway, all this will make sense when I read these 2 passages if you're listening and you're not Liz and already know what they say. Um, because your book is not just about, your family or conflict. It's about grief and love and motherhood and childhood and country and identity and culture and what to believe in and what happens after violence, and how just because some specific thing didn't happen to one person, when you're part of a culture, each separate tragedy happens to everyone, and it's felt by everyone. And I hope I'm not, speaking out of turn here, but that's at least what I've taken away from it. So, okay, so I just want to read 2 brief parts. I've never done this before, so I'm kind of nervous. The first is from a section called "My Father Dies in His Mother's Arms," and do I say you or do I say narrator here? Because it's such this for those who are listening, the book blurs, like, it's like a memoir, but it's like a fantasy memoir, and some parts I'm sure are really true, and some parts are more an imagined history. So would I say you or would I say the narrator, or does it matter to you?
I'm in relationships.
Okay, well, I'm gonna say the narrator. So I just want to, like, frame this that the narrator is discussing her grandmother holding her father when her father is a baby. The lace that covers the light is a piece she'd made when she was pregnant with her first child. All the anticipation and fear of motherhood sewn into the cloth. The sewing calmed her, the planning, the precision, the repetition, the quiet shh of thread gliding along thread. How you start with the center of the flower, the seed, the hardest part. How you move outward from the middle of each petal or leaf, stitching in one direction to the end, then back to the center, sewing in the opposite direction to create a fanning effect. How the thread does what you ask, no more, no less. How predictable it is. How you can always undo a stitch that isn't right. Start over, change direction, change the thread. My grandmother's thoughts turned to the protest, to the elation she felt as the demonstrators marched down the street underneath her window. The hammer and sickle emblem she'd cut out of the flag still lay on the floor by the window. In the morning, she'll burn it. Her heart swells briefly with pride. The great tapestry of Hungarian history, she thinks, will never be the same. The people of Hungary rose up and changed the direction of the thread. A new pattern would emerge, a pattern of their choosing, and it would be beautiful. And this part ends with a much more dramatic ending, but I'm not going to read that to you guys. You're going to have to buy it. But the second part I want to read is just to juxtapose that section and to show really the span of all of the human things that are in this book. And this is not a long book. I know I'm talking so much about your book, but um, it's just really great. And it really does illustrate all of the things I think a book should do. So this section is called A Brief History of the Molotov Cocktail, in which we learn that early in the 1939 Winter War between Finland and the Soviet Union, a war through which the Soviets hoped to annex Finland, the Soviet Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I'm going to make this sound terrible, I'm sure, but Vyacheslav Molotov claimed that the Soviet planes flying over Finland were dropping bread for the starving Finnish children. But Molotov's bread baskets exploded when they landed. That in response, the Finns, outnumbered and outmatched by the Soviets, crafted small homemade bottle bombs of the likes first used in the Spanish Civil War and called these bombs Molotov cocktails to go with Molotov's bread baskets, in which we recognize that the Molotov cocktail quickly became the weapon of choice for people who have no weapons and have no choice. Um, and this is, I just don't know like how to express all of the things that this book made me feel. And this podcast isn't really about me interviewing writers about their own books, but I felt like your book was specifically something that we needed to talk about, and I would love it if you could, kind of go into your journey with this because it's obviously incredibly personal, and incredibly heartfelt and so well written. And whatever you want to say, I would love to hear.
Well, first of all, thank you. Um, yeah, I'm really honored to have you have read, and I think when you started saying that you were going to read, I was really wondering what passages you chose, and I love that you chose those too. Um, so I think my journey with this book probably started when I was 12. But as I say in the story, that so this part is true. I was 12 when my father first talked to me about the revolution and his role in it. But even that conversation was just mostly just him giving me the magazine that I mentioned in the book.
Yeah.
And looking at these photos, this is the Time magazine that gave these and images from the revolution. And me just left wondering what role my dad played and how this impacted him. And, this great sort of mystery of my father was partially answered, but then also even greater of a mystery.
Yeah.
Um, and as I kind of knew, I'm one of those people who knew what I wanted to do for as long as I can remember. I wanted to be a teacher and a writer, so I knew I had to write about it someday. And it incubated for a very, very long time. And then when I had the opportunity to put out a proposal for the way that I had finally sort of figured out I wanted to write about it, I was lucky enough to have a small publisher say yes. And so as I began working on it, one of the things that happened was this sort of beautiful um, distancing that happened, but also in that distancing that kind of became closer to my father through it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
I think it does. I think it does make sense. And really, it's funny. This conversation is going to be one of opposites being the same thing. Anyway, keep going.
and I think you chose the Molotov cocktail passage. There was a famous image of the Hungarian Revolution of uh, one of the freedom fighters throwing a Molotov cocktail, and it's not the only conflict in which that is sort of the predominant image, but for me, it helps him. It helped express the sort of the the depth of the passion
Yep.
and the desperation at the same time.
Grassroots. It's like
Yeah,
it's for survival.
yeah. And this problem that I had is that I felt like this is a story that there's so much historical, any conflict, needs the context, right?
Yeah.
The social historical context. Um, and for me, it's really easy to get lost in all of that and to keep researching and keep adding information. And so much of the writing in it and lots of editing was cutting it back and trimming it down. And so eventually I came up with the idea of those brief histories. There's the brief history of the Molotov cocktail, of the Treaty of Trianon, and some other important pieces, trying to just really bring it down to the bare bones while still capturing why it was so important and what was kind of essential to know.
Yeah, I think it worked really well. I feel like you get your snippets without ever you never are bored. You know, you're never like, I don't really care about this.
I'm happy to hear that because I was, really concerned about that. I wanted to keep it at a pace uh, that kept the reader really engaged, but still giving them enough information so that the complexity of the historical context made sense.
And do you feel after completing this that do you feel a sense of closure about any of it, or do you feel like it or just kind of opens you up to more? If I don't know if that makes any sense.
Can I say yes and? Yes and no in both. Again, yes, if a certain sense of closure for sure. I felt. I mean, I'm beyond thrilled that the response by readers has been what it has been, and that I've been able to share it with as many people as I have. Um, but also just to have it for my family.
Yeah.
To be able to have this written, recorded legacy. Um, so
And so beautiful. What an amazing gift to your I mean, that's amazing. I bet I cannot can you share at all the reactions from your family to reading this? I can only imagine. I bet it was a little mixed, honestly. Now that I think of families, I'm like, me.
yeah, some mixed response, but my children unfortunately really didn't know my father, so it's not like so all of this is for the most part is new to them.
Yeah.
So um, there is I hope I think from their reaction is a sense of pride of just of kind of grounding, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I can also tell you that the little design that separates the section of the book, one of my daughters tattooed that on see to be able.
Cool.
I know. Um, and then I have family in Romania and other parts, and they have also found that it's inspired in them wanting to tell more stories too, wanting to have more family stories told.
Yeah, and wouldn't it be cool to make, like, a sort of compilation at some point if, not to publish, but maybe just for yourself of their stories too, just to has, like as, like, a compendium? What is the word I'm looking for here?
Compendium, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
Well, they did actually, there is this fabulous project called Hungarian Roots, American Dreams that is collecting, it's not just my family, but
Just your family.
oh, not just my family. No, sorry. No. But different Hungarians in the diaspora, their family stories, how their families came here. And I think that that's a great project, um, for to inspire people to do this. Like I hope that the book inspires other people to talk to their grandparents, to talk to whether they've been through something as y- dramatic as my father in the revolution or not. Just to
Probably not.
but everybody has their stories, and then I think it's so important to get as much as you can before you can't.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm actually so the book that I've already written, I wrote for my daughter, and it's a very personal book, kind of like this, I think, is for you, only not necessarily about the older generation of my family, but the one I'm working on now, my family came from Denmark, and so I've been really looking into, how they got here, what they were thinking, why they left, all of those things, and um, it's funny. It's funny that those are the things that really drive us and being curious about your own lives, and
Yeah.
they sort of like, I don't know, they showcase this whole world that you didn't even know about and that people can relate to on all kinds of levels because they're just people.
They are just people, yeah.
They didn't know they were gonna be, old ancestors and just living their lives just like we are right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting. Okay, wait, but now, because I don't want to get off too off track, and I really want to know about this translating business. What are you working on What have you found interesting as you combine, communication and art together and try to get somebody else's style? Like, how do you do this?
Well, so I'm very much an emerging translator. I've I have one translation published.
Yay,
Um,
congrats.
yes, thank you. So as you know from reading the book, this part is also true that I did speak Hungarian when I was very little, but then I lost my language, and I have been recently relearning it. And to me, that is just a really I I I need that back. I need that in my life again, um, for various reasons. I just feel like it's been a hole. It's been something that's really been missing, um, and for me, it is a beautiful language. It's the language of my family. Um, it's a hard language. It's very challenging, uh, but I am you know, it I do have the rhythm in my bones.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I find translation absolutely fascinating. Um, it's it's a puzzle. It's and it's so rewarding to figure out how to how to how to convey this. Yeah, I've been so the what I had published is a short story, and right now what I'm working on getting published is a collection of poems.
Oh man, that's even
And
harder. That would be way harder.
well, yes and no. Like they're just very different in translating them. But I love the process. I really do. That being said, it's a nice. It's so different from writing your own work, right? It's so different. Um, And it's a really good way to kind of reset yourself, I think, after working on a big project of your own.
Yeah. So, like, do you just take I mean, obviously with poetry, it's not necessarily the same, but do you generally just take a sentence and then try to, you, I mean, you can't go word by word, obviously, that would be too literal. Like, you have to bit bigger chunks so that you can get the flow. I just don't understand. I don't speak any other languages, so I am fascinated by this. Um, Man, how do you do it? Like,
Um, so so you can start with just the real literal translation, right? Just word for word, what's here. Except that, like with Hungarian word order, and as in so many other languages, word order matters, and so Hungarian sometimes uh, we call it a Yoda language. Or what do you kind of speak it backwards? Backwards, you speak it. Try to figure out. Um, and Hungarian's also an agglutinative language, so like you don't change endings, but you add on. And so it's like parsing down this word. What are all the different endings that are case and tense and sort of whether you're adding a preposition on and all of these things. And so there's this kind of breaking it down and then looking at the words and you know there are incredible online dictionaries that can help sort of what are the most common synonyms or most common ways this word is used.
that's
And then
actually super awesome now, I guess.
it helps a great deal. But then I turn it over to my Hungarian friend. Say, oh yeah, how does this sound to you? Because I think as a translator, you have to, um, if that's not your native language, you have to work with somebody whose native language it is, and get their you know
Yeah.
thumbs up. Is this how it really is used? Is this how? Because unless I were to go to Hungary and live there for an extended period of time, I wouldn't necessarily know this.
Right, exactly. How could you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I was kind of thinking too that, like, do you think that relearning, or should we say learning for the first time, somewhere in between those two,
Yeah.
Hungarian, has that helped you write in English better, like by giving you more ideas about the flexibility of language and the way words could be used? I talked to another person on this podcast. It's actually going to be out tomorrow, but he and I talked about how being multilingual is really useful because some words don't exist in different languages.
Mhm.
And the concepts, therefore, don't necessarily exist either. And so you can kind of put things together to make something new. I don't know if that's been your experience or if you have anything to add about that, but I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah, I think that I mean, he's right, yeah, and there's sometimes you can't get there is no direct or even indirect translation. You have to come up with a new way.
Yeah. So cool.
And that you have to then embody the intention and do it beautifully. So
Yeah, you better do it really well.
yeah. And that's where, you can have, if you and I translated the same thing, it would not be the same,
Yeah, true.
because in doing that, in it, I think, the translations too also kind of reflect where as much as true as you can be to the original language and author, there's always a piece of you in there.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, and that's why different books by different translators are still, equally popular because
Yeah.
people want a different version of the same thing to some extent. Sorry, I just have 2 more questions. So I just wanna also know about poetry because I think it's so cool that you're a poet. I find it to be a very difficult, medium, I guess, for me, but, how do you feel like that informs your prose, or did one come first, or how do they interact? I mean, obviously, they do in this book, but
Well, it's strange to hear you call me that because I don't really consider myself a poet.
Aw.
Yeah. It will, partly because I this is the only place my poetry has really been published, and I'd say that too to tell you a little story that mm, uh, the main poems in the book I actually tried to publish elsewhere.
Mhm.
This was the poem about my father that's broken into two pieces.
Yeah.
At the end, I originally tried to publish it as one poem, and a couple of and I wasn't working that hard at it. It got a couple of rejections, and then I felt like there's something needs to change. Something's not quite right. And, in the end, actually, I'm just really grateful because this is where it belonged. It belonged in this book from the start, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so but okay, I do write some poetry, yes.
Obviously.
And, I just it's just the attention to words that, all good prose writers have anyway. Um, but, um, I think it's mostly or or partly anyway, this, fascination with the brevity.
Yep. Yeah, you definitely do have it, and I do too, and I think it's great.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you totally
Yeah,
did.
okay.
No, but I do like the idea of a fascination with brevity because I think okay, it's like this. You know how when you get dressed up for something and you put on a dress and it takes you 25 seconds to put on a dress, but when you put on an outfit, it takes way longer because you gotta put on all this different stuff and it all has to match and it's got all this accoutrement. And I think that it's funny because everybody thinks you're more dressed up in the dress, but it was way easier. And I feel like that's what a long, drawn out narrative is. It's like people think that that should necessarily be better because there's more depth and more nuance and more detail. And it's not true. I mean, I'm not saying that every long piece of work isn't amazing. Some of them definitely are, but it doesn't matter about the length. It matters about what you can do in the time. And I think writing in short spaces is much more difficult, and especially to get across an incomplete theme, a complete feeling, complete characters. It's all a lot more difficult, and it just doesn't seem that way. It's kind of funny.
Right, yeah, I mean, it is really the challenge of flash and especially micro and, of course, poetry to do all those things in such a contained space.
Yeah. So I actually don't know this, but what do you teach? Like, what do you teach specifically?
Yeah, no, I teach, Gwynedd Mercy's an undergraduate and graduate school. I teach undergraduate, composition classes and literature classes,
So
uh,
both. Okay.
yes, so right now I'm teaching multicultural literature and introduction to literature, and very excited next semester I'll be teaching literary monsters.
Well, what is that?
So, um, well, what you might typically think of Frankenstein, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, Dracula. I've a fascination with vampires too.
Who doesn't?
And yeah, we're starting with Beowulf, and we're actually going to read the Grendel novel version. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
So cool. Um, all right, next. What was I gonna ask you? I have so many things to ask you. Okay. Oh, how about the main event? Let's get to that because we're already halfway through this whole thing. Okay. So I know that this is crazy broad and it's very difficult to pin it down, but I genuinely want to know, what books, what poetry helped you get through rough parts in your life, helped you cope with the world, helped you become who you are, helped you change. And hopefully you've had some time to think about it. I know I didn't really phrase it as distinctly as that before, but what do you think?
I have been thinking about it, yes.
Think
Um,
it's a lot to ask for somebody like on the spot.
um, so I think the first when you when I was thinking about this, and especially again as you asked it phrased that way, um, I think one of the first book that comes to mind, the first author that comes to mind when you ask it that way is Kurt Vonnegut
Mm.
and Slaughterhouse-Five.
Yeah.
You know, which I read in high school, and for me, it was sort of like an explosion of the possibilities of what narrative could do because it was not this sort of straightforward tale anymore. Um, and it's kind of introduction to this to metafiction and autofiction and fragmentation. Um,
But while still being like a complete story that you're interested in reading. I mean,
yeah,
that's the thing is, and you don't have to make it. It's not people get intimidated, I think, by structural differences, but it doesn't make it a worse story. It's still an incredible story if you do it right. Just like your book. It's an incredible story.
I mean, and that's
Full stop.
how our life is.
Right.
Like
Yes.
we make sense of it through all the fragments anyway. Um, so for me, it's like it's it's more realistic than a story told, start to finish, because it's sort of straightforward narrative. Not that, I can't be absolutely mesmerized and in love with a book of that sort too. And John Steinbeck comes to mind, Grapes of Wrath and Bison Men. And I had an opportunity in college to like to do a self study. It was Steinbeck and Faulkner and Fitzgerald and Hemingway, and it's just like these American storytelling masters. Um, but yeah, so Kurt Vonnegut and Slaughterhouse-Five and Cat's Cradle. Then I went on to read a bunch more Vonnegut, but also in college I took a Native American literature course, and that was really powerful for me too. Uh, and different ideas again about storytelling and sort of like Leslie Marmon Silko's Ceremony and Storyteller, which is a beautiful, beautiful hybrid, really, really powerful. So poetry and photography and just the micro memoirs in there, and just this blend that knocked me off my feet, I think.
I love that. I love that there's photography in there too.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah. And I would also say, for this short, this brevity, that's also this prose but poetry, The House on Mango Street.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love it, right?
Right? Yeah. Yeah. And I also, I remember as this junior high, I was my first sort of falling in love with sci-fi. So I do have this sci-fi side.
Love it.
Awesome. Yeah. And it was this series called the Tripod Trilogy. It's for post-apocalyptic young adult sci-fi. Where humanity was controlled by aliens in this sort of like slave master situation. It was
Solid.
yeah. But then of course, leads me to Frankenstein.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which of course will be in the monster class. I don't know if I mentioned that, which is yeah, very much so.
That's gonna be a really cool class, by the way.
Yeah, I think so. And Frankenstein, it's that's amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a really cool book, and it's amazing to me that she was so young. I just don't understand, like, how could it come for you?
Yeah, agreed.
What was I gonna say? Dang it. Okay, well, you just keep talking and maybe I'll come up with something. I should write this stuff down as I come up with it.
And the fun thing about teaching when you're teaching literature, you get to, uh, for the most part, choose what you're offering. There's a lot of flexibility, and so um, The Bluest Eye. I
Yeah.
just finished teaching again. My book is falling apart.
Mine too,
One of
yeah.
the most powerful, and that was her first novel. Like,
And it often
these
is.
women blow me away. Yeah,
Have you noticed how many award-winning novels were their debuts?
yeah.
I
Okay.
actually am gonna do a whole spreadsheet about it because I think it's pretty interesting. Because I think what happens is you are ruminating about some idea for, decades, and then finally you get it down, and it's like the most full up you thing that there is. And it's not that, your other books don't become better in just craft. Obviously you get better as you write, but maybe thematically the first one is really like the crux of everything that follows. I don't know if this is true. This is just a theory I'm like working on, but
No, I think there's something to that. This is the story you have to tell. You have to get it out.
yet the reason you
And
start writing.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, Beloved is my favorite.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I motherhood,
Yeah.
well, just
Yeah.
gets you good. Um, okay, so I guess I do kind of want to know if there's been anything. I know I kind of said this, but I don't. Nobody's ever given me an answer about this yet. Is there a hard time that you tried to get through that a book helped you? And what I'm thinking about is for people who are listening and they're going through some sort of transition or, I mean, obviously our entire country is in a difficult time right now. I
Mhm.
wonder if there's something that we can offer up as a balm to help us feel connected to each other, to help us feel like we're all in this together. I I don't wanna get political. I don't think it is political to say, like, when people are hungry, they're
Yeah.
I mean, what are you gonna do, right? Like, you have to have food for your kids, so, I don't want us to all turn on each other. We need to share, and I think it would be useful to have narrative concepts of what that looks like that people don't believe are socialism. Am I saying
Yeah.
way too much stuff right now? I don't know, but
But well, so you said you don't want to get political, but I think all writing is political. You know, the all the choices that we make about what story we're going to tell and how we tell it.
yeah, it changes the story. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but the Grapes of Wrath comes to
Oh, yeah.
not that it necessarily was a balm for me in a particularly hard time, but that is, and especially the ending, like that is what it is. At the heart of it is this caring for your community.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say that.
That's a great idea. I know I am totally putting you on the spot with this one. That's not, like, very fair.
Sorry.
Sorry.
It's okay. I mean, The Bluest Eye is so hard to read, but like the whole reason it's so hard is because it's asking us to do better for each other,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I mean, talk about windows and mirrors is exactly
Mm.
both. It's like you're looking through a window and you see yourself reflected on the window. Yeah, it's like both
Yeah,
completely.
it's relentless, but also in that it's its power, I think. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. I did just read not that long ago, Exit West. Have you read that?
I have actually. We're using it as a comp for my book. I don't know if that's
Oh my
accurate.
gosh.
I will tell. People think that's ridiculous, but just because of the magical realism and conflict.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
super cool book though. Yeah, you should talk about it. Or
yeah, no, no.
sorry.
Wait, it is all these things just came to my head at once. Of A, I can't wait for your book. B, magic realism. I didn't mention that. Like I love magic realism. I was a double major in college, so I did a lot of Latin American authors.
Oh yeah.
Borges. Oh my goodness, and of course Gabriel Garcia Marquez and magic. But like magic realism and this sort of course, it's not just Latin American literature and this sort of this.
But there was a big trend there that's definitely
There
worth
were
mentioning. Yeah, of
yes,
experts or I don't wanna say
yeah. Then there's just such a like this the I don't know the style of it, but this the freedom to speculate, I guess, and this
yeah.
bringing in of the magic, like and this invitation to look at things around us as magical. Even the everyday, I think, is just um, in its own way a balm. You
Yeah. No, you're
know.
totally right. Yeah, and it's like extending the metaphor, you know, in a very immersive way.
Yeah,
That's how I think of it. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, you can't really get the feeling of having doors that can help you escape when your doors just randomly I'm sorry, Exit so for people who don't know, Exit West has, magical maybe I shouldn't say that because it doesn't even pop up for, like, 30 pages. So at first you're like, "Oh, this is a normal book," and then you're like, "Oh, wait a sec."
You're right.
But anyway, people can sort of escape their situations by, using these magical doors, and it's sort of this idea that everyone is searching for these doors so that they can immigrate. I mean, maybe I'm not saying this very well. I'm not very good at articulating on the spot. I don't know if you've noticed.
That's why we write, right?
Yeah, I know, right? And edit.
Yes, yes. Well, but yeah, that's what the book is about, right? And then these doors appear, and you can escape one place, but then you find yourself a stranger in a new place, and you don't even know where you're going to land, right? And how
Or if something's better on the other side, or do you try it again? Or if you're, yeah, exactly.
yeah, yeah. What a metaphor, you know. And then and this constant that people are constantly going through these doors and really just realizing again we're all in the same boat.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of why I picked the intro for this podcast was like, I mean,
Yes.
I do think of myself as an American, obviously being a soldier and being in the law. I mean, those are pretty, I don't know, pretty American things. But on the other hand, I don't think of America as a place. I think of it as an idea, and
Right.
the idea doesn't have to be here. It needs to be wherever people are. And if it's not working, we need to change it and all of those things. So I feel like
Right.
we are all just people on Earth, and we should learn to use the Earth together, however we have to, so that we can survive.
Right.
I mean,
Yes. Well said. See, very very articulate.
oh, please, 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 please. Okay, okay. Oh man, we're almost out of time. Okay, don't worry, everything's fine. We're not gonna panic.
Okay.
Um, tell me all the things that I didn't ask. Like, okay, anything you want to talk about that you're working on? Have anything about consequence?
Well, I'm delighted you brought up consequence. For so we're working on our next issue. It's such a delight to be part of this organization. And where Consequence Forum is a literary journal. Just to in case you don't, for those who don't aren't familiar, so it's a literary journal, but also an online space for forum and sometimes workshops and other things that we do.
Yeah,
Um,
editorial stuff.
and
Right?
now coming out here very soon, offering editorial services. Um, so for literature and art that addresses geopolitical violence and the consequences of geopolitical violence and war. Um, and so I became involved a couple of years ago, shortly after I um, sent them an excerpt from my book, and I was like, "Would you like to publish a piece?" Which they did, and then I became a reader.
Good.
Um, and then assistant fiction editor and now fiction editor. And it is such a joy to be able to read all these stories and to be able to work with authors like you, which just um yeah, it fills my cup.
Yeah.
It really does, yeah.
You know what I think is cool too is that as you're reading submissions from all kinds of people and all kinds of situations, that you kind of are able to complete a picture of humanity and, you know, okay, I am just off the cuff on this one here, but I think a lot about how parenthood and the military and the Justice Department and all these things in my life are all the same. They're all about navigating conflict and trying to solve it in the best way possible. And all of those things will come to blows if
Mm,
we don't do that, right? Children will fight, and if we didn't have a justice system that people actually believe in, there will be violence.
mhm,
If we can't right wrongs and people don't feel like, the criminal system or the tort system where they can, have civil relief, if they don't believe in those things or they don't believe that they're fair, there will be violence and there will be violence geopolitically as well.
yeah.
And I just can't help thinking that, if you get to see all of these different people's thoughts about this, you kind of have a better picture of what it all means together. And I think it can't help but inform, the next things you write. I'm imagining you're working on writing something yourself as well. I can't imagine you're not. Are you, hopefully,
Right. Yeah.
besides translation?
Ooh. Um, yes. So I have they're still really early stages, but there's um mostly memoir. Uh colleague tentatively titled Anti-Fragility.
What?
Um
Are you kidding me? I wrote a law review article about children with disabilities and anti-fragile dispute resolution. That sounds really boring when I say that,
okay,
but
we're having another conversation after this, please.
yeah. Okay.
Okay. The other project is it will be hybrid, of course, but mostly fiction. about vampires. A
Yeah,
different, yes.
you're so great. I just love the like scope of you as a human. I don't know if that's weird to say, but
No, I'm pausing because I feel like there's I want to do it. I want to do it justice, to it in how I say, the breadth of conflicts and types of conflicts that people write about. I want to acknowledge that and honor that. Um, but at the same time, say, yeah, I think I started talking off about Tim O'Brien, and I'm going to come back to Tim O'Brien, and really, like, in the end, it's all, any war story is also a love story.
yeah.
I mean, we write because we love humanity, and we, we want us to do better, when we want to celebrate the people who do better, and we want to, honor the people who, are fighting the fight to be better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I think that's really well said. I think I don't know, when I think about conflict, I just want to write about how precious every single person's life is and how much they have to give, that it's like every human is a whole world inside of themselves, and when we lose it, we don't even know what we're losing. Like, we have no idea what they were capable of doing and how they were gonna contribute and everything else. And I know that's kind of utilitarian to say it like that. I mean, obviously, their life has value for themselves and for their family as well, but it also has value for all of us. So, I just think that, I said it to Matthew as well, but I think what you guys do is really important. And how can I tell people about your book?
Um,
I got it on Amazon,
you
and I don't think that
I don't think I think right now, like, the current price is $400 or something.
well, you're not getting mine.
Yeah. I so I have a limited stock. Unfortunately, the publisher has closed. And this happened to a lot of very small publishers during the pandemic, and one of their main distributor just closed with no warning, nothing. So small press distribution. Um,
This sucks.
yeah, so I'm in the process of reissuing it, and
Yep.
I'm hoping, actually, next October. So we just had the anniversary of the 1956 revolution, and October 23rd is when it started. Next October 23rd will be the 70th anniversary. So I am really hoping that by next October, before next October, I can do a relaunch with a new publisher, or self-publish, whatever ends up being the right thing. Um, yeah, but in the meantime, I do have some copies, so people can just reach out to me directly, through my website, or
Yes, that's good. Yeah, because you know what people don't want is to hear about something amazing and then not know how to get it. And then we're like, it's
yeah,
$400.
yeah,
Suck
no.
it. You can't have it. We talked about how great it is for an hour, but no, not for you.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Yeah, that's funny. Okay, so I'm glad you have a plan for that. That's really good.
I
Okay, this is it. This is your final question. And you have already kind of said some stuff, so I feel like I could let you off the hook if you don't have any others. But do you have book recommendations? Just generally, they don't have to be like life-changing. It can just be
Mhm.
good.
Okay. All right. So besides the ones I've already mentioned, mm,
Mhm.
um,
Just start saying words.
yeah. So I'm gonna throw out some sci-fi because I
Yes,
think
do it.
so Brave New World. Obviously, yes, obviously. Um, oh my gosh, now I feel so.
What about Ender's
I
Game
should have.
and Doing That? Those ones are good, I feel like.
They are.
Starship Troopers, not like the movie at all. It's like totally different.
Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? I'm a huge Blade Runner fan.
Ooh.
Yeah, and so it's very different from the Blade Runner was based on it, but it's also totally fascinating. There's some like crazy RUR in the insect play, which is
What is it?
it's translated from the Czech. It's RUR. Karl Kapek, I think, is, or I know it's Kapek. I'm not sure about the first name. I haven't read this in years. Thank you for bringing it up in my head. But it's Rosum Universal Robots. It's actually a play. It's
Oh.
fascinating. 2001 Space Odyssey, yes. Yeah. Of course, Ray Bradbury. Um,
Yeah.
all of his stuff. Um,
I have
yeah,
somebody
so
coming on. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I have somebody coming on, actually, just a good friend of mine. I feel like this podcast has become a writer podcast, but it's really supposed to be like about reading. Problem is, you guys all write too, and it's also good. But my friend only reads fantasy and sci-fi, and so I'm really excited for her to talk about, that there's more depth there than people give it credit for. It's not.
There is.
I mean, for any book, honestly. But
Well, before I forget, if we're going to continue with the sci-fi, Ursula Le Guin, anything,
oh yeah,
yeah, but anything. But I'm gonna throw out a local author. You're in Maryland, right?
I sure am. Sure am.
Yeah. So I had the pleasure of having grown up with. I met him in junior high. So we known each other since we were 11. Like poet David Keplinger. So you could talk all of his work. Um,
Awesome. I love it. Please.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Um, I just want to say all these things. I'm sitting here looking at my bookshelf, so I can give you something kind of um a little different. Roddy Doyle. I'm just looking at his book because he makes me laugh.
Oh, good. That's
He has
awesome.
a novel called The Van, and yeah.
You have
Uh,
more. You have fulfilled your duty here.
oh, I'm gonna throw out one more.
Okay, do it.
Who was one of the editors on my book. Uh, Kalani Pickard, who wrote "I Will Die in a Foreign Land."
Ooh, that's a cool
Talk
title.
about the war in Ukraine, yes, and it is a wonderful, wonderful book.
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. Oh, wait. Okay, I know I said that you were done, but now I have one more thing. One thing that I really want to talk about that I haven't found a way to pivot to necessarily is nonfiction and not just memoir, because I know that this is about literature. On the other hand, I do think that there are some like really key nonfiction books that have affected my life. And so I was wondering if there were, nonfiction books that you might be that may have been interesting to you. I mean, I know we only have like a minute left, but
Yeah.
I want to find a way to pivot into that a little bit. And it could be memoirs like Sylvia Plath's unabridged diaries. I mean, those are her diaries, but they were really meaningful to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, can I say The Way to Rainy Mountain, which is memoir
Yeah.
also? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was really moved by Angela's Ashes
Yeah.
and the high
True.
back. And then there was a time I was doing a lot of reading of uh, scientific that science writing. So Lewis Thomas and Richard Selzer and their essays about science in the body and
Cool.
kind of the miracle of existence. I think are definitely coming to mind with that question.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm so sorry again because I have one more question. Okay, what about for kids? Because I don't think I realized that you had kids. And so now I just want to know, like, is there a book that you read as a child that you read to your children or have read to your children? Like, or have given them?
The nobodies, the anybody's, and the somebodies. And, the main character, her name is Fern, after, of course, Charlotte's Web.
That was not enough course to me. That's awesome that you said that.
And so she's a lover of books and books like that. She lives in a house made of books, like all this wonderful, amazing stuff. But it's about how, so much of it is about how our who we are and how much of our identity can be shaped by what we read and the stories we tell ourselves and each other. And I just love the play of it, with the and sort of it's one of those novels also like sort of talk directly to the reader, and I think that's always so much fun for a younger reader to have that, oh, they are talking to me kind of
Yeah.
moment. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I like that too.
Okay.
But thank you so much. This has been really awesome, and I mean, like, it was just really great. It was a really fun conversation. I'm so glad to like know you and to have spoken to you. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, and in the words of my daughter,
Let's hip hop our way out.